This is the Real PolitiDiva. The truth has arrived.
Yeah, it has. Let's do this.
Hey, now I'm back in town. This time I'll shake you down. I'm taking back my crown, 'cause I'm the best around. And my name you shouted out. I want to hear it loud. You hang your head in shame. Don't you forget this day.
This is Jonathan Gilliam back in on The Experts, your favorite podcast. Sing it, Melissa. We like it when Melissa sings. All right, it's good to be back on a Monday, and there's actually a lot to talk about. There's since I did the last podcast with Mike Gasali, which if you didn't check him out, you need to go check him out. He's the mayor of Montville, New Jersey, and he's running for Congress, I think in the 5th district of New Jersey. But his story on the 5th podcast is absolutely amazing. And if you listen to that, you need to go listen to the second one with Drago, the second episode, because his is absolutely amazing as well. But let's see. I mean, there's so much to talk about. I just tweeted a little while ago. Let's just start with that, okay? Last week, actually, I hosted on Breitbart News last week, and I said some stuff about Attorney General Barr, and I'm going to reiterate that here because I can expound on a lot of this stuff here. Whether it's Barr or Dershowitz, the guy that's doing the other, Durham. Thank you, producer. That was actually, that's the Real PolitiDiva, but I'm going to introduce her in a minute. I got a special introduction for her. Durham or Barr, both. People keep saying that they think that there's going to be this great plan. It's all in the plan, that Q knows this and this plan and Trump, and he's going to do. Listen, people need to forget all that stuff. This is reality, okay? That stuff's not reality. This is reality, okay? That reality is that Q, although may have been somebody at the very beginning, I looked at some of the posts that were from the beginning, and it seemed to be someone who actually had some insight, I believe. The rest of the stuff that's been posted, and people, when I tweet about Q not being real or fake or whatever, or a fraud, I always get these massive amounts of Q people coming at me, and it's exactly like it is on the left with the people who are the puppets for the DNC and these leftists. These people that are Q people, they just take it at face value, and they don't realize that what they're being given is just information that's out there, and somebody has made some, I would say, educated decisions on a lot of this stuff, but I don't think it's really much that. If you know a lot about the leftists and how their tactics and techniques are, and the things that politics as usual in DC, a lot of this stuff is things that you can figure out on your own if you do enough research. It's probably just somebody who's good at doing research, or a couple people that are trying to make money off of this Q phenomenon that started. And believe it or not, there's people that make a lot of money off of this Q thing. So, do I think Q is real? I think it's a real person or people. I think the original Q is different than what you're seeing now. While I don't have evidence of that, and people say, how do you know that? I'm just basing it off investigative outlook of the things that were stated at the beginning, and then the things that are being stated now over the past couple of years. And it just seems to me to be a lot like when you get to know somebody and they start a sentence and you finish it for them, or you finish their thought. If you're doing your research properly, you can kind of forward think a lot of the things that happen in government or that are going to happen. It's not rocket science, because these people are obviously in DC are not rocket scientists. In regards to Barr and Durham, I don't believe anything that anybody says that they're going to do, that there's this plan, until I see that plan, or until I see the convictions. I can guarantee you there's not 100 and something thousand secret indictments that are out there that they're going to make our base down in Cuba, Guantanamo, even bigger so they can take politicians down there and do that. Listen, that's stuff of freaking the movies, all right? That's not happening in this country, and I'll tell you exactly why. Because what you saw in Virginia a month or so ago, where they stood up to this leftist agenda, and over 20,000 people showed up, 16,000 with their guns, that does not happen typically in this country when it has to do with things that people are concerned with the Constitution, because they feel like that the Constitution already exists, that they don't have to try to fix anything, so nobody organizes and nobody goes out and does anything. But they did in Virginia, and look, it worked. That leftist bill did not pass. So that is exactly what people need to be doing to go forward if they want to stop this stuff. Don't wait for Barr. Don't wait for Durham. I guarantee if we got 1 million people out there and they surrounded the DOJ and they didn't let anybody go to work for a month, there'd be some stuff happening. There'd be nothing anybody could do about it. You surround the DOJ with, 1 or 200,000 people or more, or even 50,000 people. They're not going to be able to do anything. They're not going to kill 50,000 people. They're not going to arrest 50,000 people. If you got the logistics to stay there in support of the Constitution, and not just the Constitution, but as standing up to the DOJ for not doing their job to prosecute the people who have violated the Constitution and this two-tier justice system, if you're not willing to stand up against that, or if you did stand up against it with masses, there's nothing they could do. They would be pressured to react, and I can guarantee you that they would. They would eventually break, and people would start going to jail. Not going to happen until that occurs, until American people stand together. I don't care if you're Democrat or you're conservative or constitutionalist or whatever. You should realize that these issues affect all of us. It affects all of us, and if you don't do something about it, it's going to be a major, major thing. It's huge. So when I look at Q, when I look at Barr, when I look at Durham, I look at all these people who think that there's a plan. It's all stuff that majority of people in social media have created a frenzy for. There's a two-tier justice system in this country. Socialism, communism, and globalism are basically the same thing. There's really no difference. It's kind of how they get to it. Eventually, they always get to the same thing. There is this whole Q thing is people are putting too much faith in that, and they're starting to worship that as though it's changing things and opening people's minds. It's not. If you knew the Constitution, you would know everything you need to know about what is right and what's wrong, because what they don't do in following the Constitution is wrong, and what they do in following the Constitution is right. That's basically all you need to know. That, and Jesus died for your sins, and God is the creator of all the universe. If you know those things, you're pretty much going to know everything you need to know about what's truth and what's not. And that's the other thing. Truth over opinion always wins. And that's the troubling thing about social media. Most of it is opinion. Sometimes it's truth, but a lot of times just opinion. There are a lot of people, used to be blue checkmark people, had experience in some way, shape, or form, and that's why they got a blue checkmark. Now, I mean, you can say, you could be a nobody, which there's a lot of these out there right now, and say, I'm going to run for Congress, and you get a blue checkmark automatically. And I think that's wrong. But listen, Twitter, social media, it's not real world anyway. Also, what you're seeing is that you're seeing major amounts of young people who are running for Congress. And for some strange reason, they're getting like retweeted by Trump and getting support by other people. But a lot of these people are getting paid, right? They're getting paid to support them and do their social media and things like that. If you're conservative and you're in the political industry, this is not a time to be playing that game. You need to start looking for people that have real experience, and you need to try to push those people forward. If there's people that say, I'd like to run for Congress but I don't want to, I really don't know what to do. I don't have the finances for it. And quite frankly, I don't really want to get into that mess. If you work in politics and you identify somebody like that, you should get behind that person and do everything you can to help them go forward. A lot of the times, especially in this day and age, if somebody has real qualifications and they have a charismatic personality and you push them forward, they could actually get elected. But this nonsense about 26-year-olds and, people with no experience going up against, different big-time Democrat politicians and people pouring money in there and they're wasting that money or they're pocketing that money and they have history of doing, stupid, controversial stuff, and that's it. No other experience at all. You better smarten up and start giving your money and start managing the politics much better than that. And I'll give one other warning. The Republican Party, I've been around this country enough over the past year to figure out what's actually happening in the GOP. There are people, whether they're I don't know exactly the titles that they have, but they're like mid-level. They kind of they control the funds from the national Republican Party down to the state and local Republican parties, and they help pick delegates and they approve people, and those people are corrupt all over this country. And that's one of the reasons why you don't see good people get in office. That's why you didn't see Scott Ulinger get in office in Pennsylvania in the 9th District, because there was some guy who was a nobody, but he was like a state politician, and he was in with the GOP, didn't have any experience in anything else but that. That's who they poured their money into, not Scott Ulinger, a naval officer, former CIA operations officer and station chief over by Russia, doing major operations over there. No, they wouldn't give the money to him. Probably one of the most well-read individuals I've ever met in my life. They wouldn't give the money to him. They're going to give some money to some guy who never left Pennsylvania and was a state rep or something like that, and basically doesn't know. See, here's the important part about this. In order to have solutions, you have to have experience in solving things. You can't just say, hey, listen, I'm a conservative, I should have an office. I mean, listen, I'm not going to hire you if I have a company just because you like my company. If you don't have experience in the job, I would never hire you to run the company. You're not going to come in and manage a store if you've never worked in that industry before. You got to work your way up. You got to learn the industry, learn the jobs that people do, work your way up in management until you get enough knowledge, understanding, and experience in order to lead in that area. Why in the world would we ever think that putting people in office that have no experience in anything, not even life, that they're going to have the right answers? It is unrealistic, but yet we do it all the time. And it's not just these young people that are running for office now. Let's look at people like Ben Sasse, for instance, from the Republican Party. He went to high school, went from high school to an Ivy League school, went from an Ivy League school, and I think he went to Harvard Law, and then was on the board of directors for some company, then had a professor job at some university in Texas, and somewhere in between there or around there, he became a senator. We're not talking about 20 years of experience teaching and working as this top advisor for a company. I'm talking high school, college, law school, top of a company, professor, senator within like 10 years. How does that work? How does that give you enough experience? And I think it shows with somebody like Ben Sasse. They just toe the Republican establishment line. And there's all these people like this, tons of people like this on the left and the right in Washington, D.C. We have to be smarter, and we have to start understanding. Remember, I'm not just talking to conservatives here or Democrats. All of you, whether you're liberal or conservative, whatever you call yourself, you better love the Constitution, because your ability to think freely is bound to that piece of paper. So this is something that I keep seeing and reflecting on as I keep hearing people talk about this plan. Oh, it's all in the plan. Whenever you hear somebody tell you, don't worry, it's all part of the plan, don't believe it. Because what I've seen with bosses who say that stuff, they don't know what they're doing. when I see it in people who worship politicians, which you should never do. They don't know what they're talking about. I mean, most of the people that are Q followers, they don't even know anybody in Washington, D.C. They've never been to Washington, D.C. They don't understand the reality of, they've never worked in a federal agency. They don't understand the weirdo politics that go on there. They think they do. But they think that the government is capable of doing a lot of things that the government's not. The government is capable of doing the things that it does because the people don't hold the government to task. That's why they're allowed. That's why they're able to do those things. Not because they have any superpowers. Certainly not because they're that smart. It's because they can. Look, the mob would be the same way in New York City. Gangs and criminals in New York City would have been the same way. If it wasn't for somebody like Giuliani, you came in, put a cop on every street corner, and cracked down the Lower East Side, for instance, and cleaned it up, criminals would be able to do whatever they want. That's what they're doing in New York City. They're giving criminals the ability to do whatever they want. And so that's what they do. They do whatever. It's not because they're rocket scientists. It's that they can do whatever they want. They get arrested now in New York. They just get released. And that's emboldened people. And so it looks like these people are getting meaner. They're not. They're just getting away with it. And it's the same thing in politics. It's not that they're rocket scientists. It's not that they have this master plan of how they're going to fix things. They don't. They're just waking up every day and kind of playing that game. Now, I do believe the left in Washington, D.C. does have a plan. And I do think they have a master plan. If you want to know where the master plan exists, it exists on the left. It most certainly does not exist on the right. The left systematically is trying to destroy this country because they believe if you haven't done research in communism, this is why I say socialism, communism, and globalism are all the same, because socialism and globalism are both similar and they're both the big liars. But communism believes and preaches that through this chaos that is caused by division, causing division in people, allowing activists to make noise, allowing the government to be in chaos, and through that chaos will come a synthesis that allows them to basically, as you would when you churn milk, or when you take milk from the cow, and you take the cream off the top, and that's what you make butter out of. But that's basically, imagine the stuff on the top is just the activists. You just scoop it off. Once it all comes out and it gets in there, you just scoop that stuff off. Now you have milk. It's the same thing with communism. They believe this whole chaotic thing is going to happen. These people rise up, yada, yada, and then they just scoop those people away. And the people who are synthesized, that don't cause trouble, that don't make a ruckus, that have the same ideology, those are the people that will still exist, and they'll have this utopia. That's what they believe. Never gets past the dictatorship. And to tell you the truth, that's Satan's idea, because only Satan would come up with something that narcissistic and stupid, because the reality is if you want utopia, you have to be free. You have to choose to help each other out. You have to set laws that will punish people that do bad things. And hopefully that will convince a lot of people not to do bad things. You have to have family units. You have to have discipline. And you have to have authority figures and know your place in life. That's how you find a utopia, not through some kind of synthesis that occurs through chaos. That just sounds like something Satan would come up with. So I hope that you kind of get this, where I'm going with this, and you can understand what I'm trying to say. Basically, this is it in a nutshell. There is no plan. Q's a fraud. That don't believe that stuff. Don't get yourself caught up in that nonsense. If you don't know what it is, don't even worry about it. There is a two-tier justice system in this country, and it's there because of you, because you haven't stood up together to stop it. And truth will always trump opinion. So you got to stop looking at people's opinions. I don't care what you think of them. You don't know majority of these people in Washington, D.C. You don't know these famous people in Hollywood. You don't know these people. Don't worship them. Don't take what they say for face value. And certainly don't go on Twitter or on Facebook where you have all these, I've got 1,000 friends on Facebook. You don't know but maybe 20 of them. They're not your friends. They don't know any more than you do about most stuff. So don't let people bully you into believing stuff. And if you're one of those people that go around bullying, you should take a step back. You're doing more harm to the country than you are good. And I think it's ripe for narcissists and psychopaths on these social media outlets that go and they just used to be trolls that just did this for fun. Now the reality is a lot of these people literally believe, they have this messiah complex. They believe they know more. They're delusional. So, I'll tell you what, I'm going to take a break real quick. I'm going to do a commercial because I'm trying to put commercial breaks in here when I do actually get big sponsors, which we are going to get. This podcast has really grown pretty quick. So let's do that right now. We'll take a little break for just a few seconds, and then we'll be, hold on 1 second. Let me fix this. I want to do this right. I want to do this in one take. All right? We'll be right back. This is Jonathan Gilliam. Check it out, folks. I wrote a book about 2 years ago called Sheep No More, The Art of Awareness and Attack Survival. Most of you know about that book. It's a bestseller. Sean Hannity wrote the foreword for it, and what it is it teaches you how to look at your life from the attacker's point of view, and it allows you to understand how attackers systematically choose the times that they want to attack, the areas they want to attack, the critical assets that they're going after, and the vulnerabilities that they exploit in order to get the avenues of approach. It doesn't matter if it's a pedophile or a rapist or any type of online intrusion, any type of attacker. You can forward think that by breaking your life into sectors and looking at each sector from the attacker's point of view and then turn around and truly defending that. There's workbooks that go with it. Sheep No More, The Art of Awareness and Attack Survival. And now, for your children, The Adventures of Team Little Bigs. It is a book of pictures that you can go online and get lesson plans for. You give the kid the book, all these iconic pictures, and you can look at the characters, and there's safety and awareness built in the pictures, and you get the lesson plans. And so you teach your child about awareness, safety, and communications from a very young age. It goes right along with Sheep No More. Check it out. Go get them both. Sheep No More, The Art of Awareness and Attack Survival, and The Adventures of Team Little Bigs. Go get it wherever books are sold. We'll be right back. And we're back. I'm having fun mixing music if you're seeing that. And now we're going to bring in, I think I need to add some different music here. Let me check out, what am I going to do for the PolitiDiva? This is a little bit too serious. All right, let's scratch that. Hold on. Let's start this over again. Oh, yeah, that's good. That good? Yeah, that's good. She gave me the yes. Here you go. Ladies and gentlemen, you've heard her at the intro of the show several times. You've seen her on Twitter. You've heard her on Breitbart News, David Webb's show, Andrew Wilkow, the Wilkow Majority, on Sean Hannity's radio show. 21-year educator, the Real PolitiDiva on Twitter, or Real PolitiDiva, and on Instagram. Let's bring her on. What's up, Diva?
I don't hear my mic. Is
now
it
you
up?
do.
Oh, okay.
There you go. What's up, Diva?
Well, I just want to state for the record that I'm doing this under duress because I'm still recovering from the flu. So my personality might not be as effervescent as it normally is.
Let me just turn this music down.
But I like the music, though. I almost
You
feel
did
like
like
a WWE diva instead of a PolitiDiva.
Let's try this one. Maybe this would have been better. We'll do this one next time. Hold on. Let's try this one here. Hold on. There you go. Live from New York, the Real PolitiDiva.
You are having way too much fun with your soundboard.
Well, I just got
now.
this new soundboard, so I don't know if people at home will like this, but let me try one more. Let's see, which one is this? You've seen her on Twitter.
Oh, no.
Maybe you've seen her on Instagram. She's all about makeup.
Make it stop, please.
Real PolitiDiva. 21-year educator. See, that's pretty good. Maybe I should use that. Okay.
You're nuts. You're crazy.
Am I really, or am I just loved by the audience? That's right. Oh, my goodness. Wait, hold on.
I feel so underdressed for the studio audience watching along with us tonight. That's why I love radio, though, Jonathan, because people don't know if I'm all dressed up in my diva glory or if I'm in a bathrobe with oatmeal stains on it. They have no idea. I could be dressed in anything right now.
Yeah, you could. So listen, I want to get Traci's take on what I was saying there a minute ago. Traci Belmonte, the real PolitiDiva.
Oh, you said a mouthful. You said a lot.
Yeah.
I agree with all of it, but
before I even go there, I want to get your take on. So I just convinced Traci to watch her first NASCAR race. You know, we watched the opening of the Daytona 500 yesterday, and it was pretty unbelievable. It was the most patriotic thing I've ever seen in a sports in recent history. I mean, it was pretty darn amazing.
yeah.
And I think, you know, here's one thing before we talk about the race tonight. Everybody always talks about how the president gets us. The president is one of us. I mean, who else but Donald Trump would have driven the beast around the track, pacing the cars, flown his plane over at 800 feet in a flyby, and then when it took off back, I mean, it was just the whole thing was absolutely amazing.
It was my first NASCAR experience, and I have to say I love that the Daytona 500 was held at a Trump rally. It was pretty amazing.
That's pretty much what it was.
I honestly, for everything about it, from Air Force One, the way it did the flyover, which was super cool. When have you ever seen anything like that? It was the most cool thing ever. And then you had the children's choir singing God Bless America, and then a military service woman singing the anthem. I'll take that over that overly produced sex show that they had going on during the Super Bowl. You know what I mean? I'll take that any day of the week over that. Plus, you had 250,000 people there and not one person kneeled. How amazing is that?
Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
Nowadays, it's amazing.
But you got to experience your first race tonight. Mm-hmm. We watched the whole Daytona 500. It was pretty amazing getting to see some of those big major crashes. But I wish I would have filmed you when, unfortunately, Ryan Newman in the less than, I don't know, maybe
It was like the
500
final
yards
lap.
from
Yeah,
500
right.
yards from the finish line. Mm-hmm. This incredible run they were having. This is what NASCAR's all about. The way Ryan Newman charged the front with, using the draft, and then Denny Hamlin was able to drop back in there and then push another car. And then when they went around, unfortunately, they were all race. I mean, Ryan Newman was blocking like crazy, and one of those blocks he got nudged, which happens, and he went up into the wall. And then up into the air, and then got hit by another car, went up in the air even further, landed. All that happened on the driver's side, too, by the way. And then he lands upside down and on the driver's side and was skidding at, I don't know, probably 150 miles an hour until he came to a rest. And what was shocking was the fuel.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that was so scary because the fuel was coming out and the fire was right next to the fuel.
There was a fire in the back, and then the fuel, you could just see it drain out. And that's the thing that was making me very nervous. If he was injured, that's one thing, and they have fire retardant suits.
Right, but even the cameraman was zooming in on the fuel and the fire, which literally, what was that, about a foot away from each other? It was really close.
Yeah.
And I was just screaming at the TV, put it out, because obviously you don't want to see a man get seriously hurt or killed on TV. And we just found out a few minutes ago that he's going to be okay. He didn't have any life-threatening injuries, which is amazing to me because that crash made me scream when I saw it. It was horrific. I thought I watched a man die. Yeah. On that track tonight. Now, they put the black tarps up so you couldn't see anything going on, and they got the media out of the pit. And the only other time I've ever seen anything like that was when I went to the Belmont horse race. This was when American Pharoah won the Triple Crown, which was really spectacular. Mm-hmm. But there was a horse in the race previous that broke its leg, and they had to put it down, and they put the screens up.
They put these big black screens around.
Big black screens around, so you can't see anything going on. So when I saw the screens go up, and you looked at Jeff Gordon's face.
Oh, yeah, that was the other thing. The announcers were not they looked very I know these guys, not personally, but I've been watching NASCAR all my life, and they were shocked.
Right. And what did you think about that Hamlin guy celebrating? I thought that was really classless.
So people are going to say that, but here's what I think. I think that was a NASCAR decision. Go out there, because even Denny Hamlin, when he was getting interviewed, didn't look like Denny Hamlin's look like in other interviews. Mm-hmm. I have a feeling NASCAR said, go do what you're doing, because, I mean, heaven forbid if he was dead over there, they were going to try to get him out of there. And
they were just trying to divert the attention
Yeah,
away.
I think that's what that was. And I'm not going to come down on NASCAR for what they did. I think they were trying to make the best out of a bad situation. So they said, go ahead and celebrate, and do it. And
well, I'm glad he's okay. For me, watching the race as a first-time person, which is like, I don't know what's happened to me. I'm watching NASCAR and RV shows now.
Yeah,
I just
right.
like, ew. But
Gilliam has an effect on people.
when they push each other, that to me, going 200 miles an hour and pushing a car, I don't know how they do that with such finesse, because
they're badass. Let's see if we can, if you can hear this. This is on foxnews.com, so I'm assuming we can play this. I'm assuming we can. Maybe we shouldn't. Anyway.
No, because it could be one of those, sometimes they have montages with just music and words.
No, this is actually the last lap.
Okay.
And it's a sound, but I don't know if they would do something or not, if they would kick that off. I don't know. I don't know if that would...
copyright infringement?
I don't know if that's copyright infringement or not, because it's on the news.
Fascists.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm going to do it, but it was pretty intense anyway. So you're okay now though, right?
I'm okay. I did have a very big adrenaline rush. I'm not going to lie. I have the flu and adrenaline rush.
Yeah.
Kind of tired.
If you haven't got to go to a NASCAR race, you should go to one, especially the smaller tracks. And what's incredible about it is that it's a sport where you literally can feel it. I mean, the cars are so loud, you got to wear, earplugs. And when they go by, if you have a hat on, they'll blow your hat off if you're sitting down the lower side of the bleachers. And so you can see it, feel it when they crash, and you can smell the fuel and the rubber burning, and it's unbelievable. And then it's right there in front of you. It's pretty unbelievable when you get to experience that. So if you haven't got to see one, go see one. Some people say that it's better to sit up high so you can see the whole track. I don't think so. I think it's better to sit down close so you can, because they have these big screens, you can watch the cars as they race on the other side of the track, because some of these tracks are 2 miles around. But when they come by you, you get that adrenaline of them being right there. It's just pretty unbelievable.
Can I talk Q stuff now?
Yeah, let's go back to Q stuff.
No, I just want to say, because I agree with everything that you said in the beginning, because I don't follow this arbitrary letter. I follow God. I follow the Constitution. Mm-hmm. I follow my heart. Those are the 3 things that I follow. The special prosecutor, everybody's pinning their hat on, this Durham.
Let me say one thing real quick. Mm-hmm. You also follow your training and experience and your knowledge and understanding of things in the world. I mean, you've done a lot. 21 years in the education field. Right. You've, and it's not just, you're not just a teacher. You're a conservative teacher in a liberal job that teachers around the country say the same things about how unbelievably oppressive it is around the country. And it's being a teacher, a conservative teacher now, is almost akin to being a warrior on the front line. I mean, you deal with stuff on a daily basis that most people just won't deal with. So when you say that those are the things that you depend on to make your decisions, you left out that you have this long career.
Oh, I have a knowledge base. Yes.
Yeah, you have a knowledge base as well.
I have a knowledge base, for sure.
And you've been in politics. You worked
right.
Behind the scenes for Lee Zeldin and other politicians. You've been on the street. You've walked and done things where you went home with blisters on your feet, and you stayed up late hours and then had to work the next day. I mean, you've been out there and seen the reality of politics.
Right. I've used my own money to go campaign for Donald Trump and go up to New Hampshire and because I didn't want to take the bus. I'm a diva. I used my own money to go campaign for him in Pennsylvania. I knocked on doors. I put together signs. I made phone calls. I've been involved in this for a really long time. And, I know we're topic jumping, but when you're talking about these conservative candidates, quote unquote conservatives, that are just trying to make names for themselves, we have to be very, very careful and vet these people. Now, you know as well as I do, you know the story where I had people come to me, ask me to run for Peter King's seat that's being vacated. And there were people that were a little too eager for me to run. And I almost felt like it was because they knew they could fundraise a lot of money off of me. And at the end of the day, I'm going to be responsible. I'm putting my name on all of that. I'm signing off on all of this. I also didn't want to be another one of these people. I think that I would have a great platform. I know I would have a great platform to run on. But my district is very moderate, and I'm very conservative. And my district is also co-opted by the local GOP. There are 2 candidates right now that are vying for that seat that are just young career politicians. Like, they're not even 30 years old yet. And they've been in politics their whole lives. They haven't done anything except for go to school and be politicians. So it seems to be where if you don't have that GOP backing, I mean, yes, I had backing from other people that were willing to fundraise up the yin-yang off my name, but I didn't have the GOP's respect here. Because I'm a Trump. I'm not going to follow toe the line.
And that's what I was saying earlier, that a lot of the local GOP figures and state as well is where the corruption lies. And there are specific people. I've got to find out what this position is. Somebody was telling me about this in Florida, that they have a terrible time of getting candidates because there was basically one person in a position where everything funneled through them, and they could manipulate whatever they wanted. And this one person was really guilty of putting people that the establishment wanted, and that was it, into position.
And I am chomping at the bit to get in there and to do what I look at as a civic duty, because I want to protect children in this country. Right now, you were talking a little bit about the indoctrination. The indoctrination, our government-run schools are lost.
Yeah.
I mean, not for nothing. How is it that the same generation that has benefited the most from capitalism, more than any other in human history, is also the generation that seeks to destroy it with everything that they have? It's because these teachers are teaching them that capitalism is bad. They don't even look at the irony of them tweeting out on their $1,000 iPhone and drinking their $7 cafe macchiato.
Right.
They don't look at the irony of that.
Yeah.
They don't see it. They don't think, but it's democratic socialism.
There's no such thing as democratic socialism.
It's socialism with a bow on it. Give me a break.
And that's like putting a bow on a dog turd. Yeah. I mean, if you listen to Drago in the 2nd episode and Mike Gasali in 5th episode of this podcast, you'll see the reality of what socialism's all about. Bread lines, people so cold that they have to stuff newspaper, and so poor they're stuffing newspaper. That's what Drago's mom did, stuff newspaper in their coats so that they could be warmer. But it's funny, Drago and Mike Gasali both said the same thing, that hunger was a huge part of being young in a socialist country, was the hunger. So hungry.
What would these kids do without their fancy gluten-free, avocado, soy toast, or whatever it is that they drink? I mean, give me, or eat, rather.
Yeah.
See, I have the flu. Sorry, you have to excuse me. But no, seriously, so that's why the thing with the whole Q thing bothers me, because when you're telling people to trust the plan, and now the whole thing is be patient, you become complacent. And now is not the time to be a complacent citizenry, because we're in a war for the soul of this country. This election is vitally important. It's the most important election, even more so than 2016.
The only person that should ever tell you, be complacent and trust a plan would be, and I said this earlier when I was talking, if a boss ever tells you trust a plan, I think a good example of this is when I was in the military, in the SEAL teams, and we're always told to trust higher command, especially when you go do Army training. Trust higher. Higher knows everything. Higher knows all this stuff. Now, not saying that we knew more than they did at the bottom. I mean, our job was to carry out the mission, and we did exactly what we were supposed to do, right? We're given this set of rules or regulations, and this is where our job starts, and this is where it ends. We weren't necessarily involved in making strategic decisions. We made tactical decisions that would affect the strategic outcome. But now looking back on things, I mean, not saying I wouldn't have done my job differently, but now that we can look at the way that the war on terror and the war on drugs and immigration, all these things have been ran in the past 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years, it's been a complete failure because the people at the top don't really know what they're talking about. The only person I would ever trust is if Donald Trump himself said, trust the plan, let me do what I'm doing. And he, I know he said, I'm the president. He said that to what's his name from CNN, that's why you shouldn't be the president because I'm fixing things. I mean, I trust him, but you should never trust an anonymous person that tells you trust the plan. If you don't even know who they are, why would you ever trust them?
And some of the things that they've come out with are insane. Like John F. Kennedy Jr. is really alive. He faked his own death because Hillary Clinton was going to kill him. I mean, some of these things
John
are just,
McCain, this
Yeah,
is the best
one.
one.
Oh.
That John McCain, and I've had people with a straight face tell me this, that John McCain committed suicide because the DOJ gave him the choice, or a secret tribunal gave him a choice to either be killed or commit suicide, so he committed suicide. And people believe this. And we wonder how somebody like Jim Jones leads people down to Ghana and convinces them to drink Kool-Aid and kill themselves and their kids.
I had people going completely bonkers. They were furious and telling me that, Andrew McCabe, it's not that the swamp protects their own. It's that his crime of leaking to the paper and lying about it, it was small, and they're going to go after him for all this big stuff. So correct me if I'm wrong, Jonathan, you being an FBI agent and all, former FBI agent for many years, can they charge you with a small, quote unquote, crime and then charge you with a larger crime? I mean, is that a possibility? It makes no sense.
You can
to me.
charge people with
Right.
multiple crimes. You could be taken into court for this and then tried and then taken back into court for that.
It makes no sense to me that you wouldn't charge McCabe because it's a small crime and they're going to go after him for these bigger crimes. Makes absolutely zero sense to me. And if you say that you don't believe in Q, you know what? You want to believe in Q all you want. Knock yourself out. You want to be complacent, sound like a whack job? That's on you. I don't care. But don't get nasty at people who don't trust this plan, who don't want to be complacent, people that actually got up and went to Nancy Pelosi's office during impeachment to voice their feelings, people who get up and stand up and fight for the Constitution on a daily basis instead of taking their orders from a letter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't get it. I don't get it because I've never been somebody who, well, first of all, I'm not somebody who goes along with the group. Mm-hmm. I'm not into groupthink. I'm into collections and being a part of the collection, but not the collective. Mm-hmm. That's just never been somebody that I am. That's not the way I function or the way I work. So I don't really, I have a degree in psychology, and that's the one way I kind of understand it. But overall, I really don't get how people can fall into this. I don't get it.
It's just as sick as the indoctrination that goes on in schools with the left and the kids nowadays thinking socialism is the best thing since sliced bread.
It's interesting you say that because this is one thing I've said is that, we've seen this firsthand up close with these people that attacked me down in D.C. and Traci was there, that it's as if they were brainwashed. They can't stop themselves. Mm-hmm. Walking around with their fists balled up and so not just angry at Trump, furious and hateful towards people who support Trump. And I've always said that, and I want you to tell everybody this story because I've told this before on the radio, but you got hypnotized once by a comedian. And these comedians that are on stage and they'll say, come up, and I know you guys have seen this before where they'll say, come up to the stage, they take some volunteers and they weed out who they can't hypnotize. And then they do things like they say, okay, 3, 2, 1, boom. And they snap their fingers and they're out. And they say, whatever it is. And people do stupid stuff and everybody gets a laugh out of it. I always thought that was fake because I was one of the people who went on stage and it didn't work. Mm-hmm. but it worked on you.
It did. And in fact, I
And
write
it took about
about
30 seconds.
I write about it in the introduction to my new book, which is not finished, but coming out hopefully this year. And I write about it. Oh, here we go.
Wait, that's the wrong one. Here you go. Here you go. There you go.
We're entering the twilight zone now.
So go ahead.
So I went to Vegas, a hypnotist show. You are throwing me off with this nonsense. But I went to a hypnotist show, and I decided to volunteer because my seats were terrible. So I went up, and he had me sit and visualize a picture that I had. And I had, at this time, a Polaroid of my dog, little Maxwell Sheffield. And I was visualizing it. He said, okay, close your eyes. I know. Close your eyes. Visualize every little detail. And the more you visualize, and the tighter your eyes are going to get, and they're going to end up being stuck like glue. And he goes, when I count to 3.
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry, I hit the wrong one.
When I count to 3, you're not going to be able to open your eyes. And the more you try to open your eyes, they're going to be more stuck together. And when he said...
Yeah, okay, go ahead.
When he said 3, I'll tell you, it was the most frustrating, horrendous experience. I could not open my eyes. It was as if they were glued shut. And he said, okay, when I count to 3 and hit you on the head again, your eyes are going to fly open. And he did 1, 2, 3, hit me on the head, and my eyes flew open. And it was crazy.
I'm going to smack you on the head when you least expect it, and then see if your eyes close.
No, they opened.
Oh,
they
open. Okay, so
opened.
go
Yeah,
ahead.
yeah.
So what happened?
So I ended up getting picked for the show, and I did all sorts of weird things, and it's almost like an outer body experience. Like I took my shoe off.
Out of or outer body?
Out of
Yeah.
experience.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, out of. Anyway. You know, you're picking on a sick woman.
Yeah, you pointed that out quite a bit.
Yes. So anyway, like I took my shoe off and I put it to my face like it was a gas mask because I was the fire marshal.
And when you were doing this stuff, were you aware of what you were doing?
You are, but it's a weird awareness. So you have no control. It's very strange. So I talked to the hypnotist after because I'm like, how the heck could this happen? Mm-hmm. I am not the type of person that's that extroverted that I'm going to get up and do it. And he said, honestly, he goes, you have to have a couple things: a higher than average IQ.
Wait, hold on.
Wait, here we go. I knew it.
Wait, say that again.
They heard it the first time.
Okay,
Okay. So you needed that. And you also had to believe that hypnosis worked.
Yeah, now I
so if you sat up there and said, okay, hypnotize me, bro, and it wouldn't work, you have to actually try to do it and get into that relaxed state and really follow instructions. And he said you also have to not care what people think about you. So you have to have kind of that a bit of a fearless attitude. And I really don't care what
So you're
people
saying
think
I'm
about me.
stupid and I'm paranoid about what people think
Apparently
about me?
so. I think it's the IQ thing for you. I feel bad, but that might be
Maybe. Yeah. I've never claimed to be the smartest person in the room.
I'm joking. No, you're very brilliant. In fact, I am impressed by your brain. Your brain is something else. It is. Laugh track.
Oh, wait. No, I'm sorry. Wrong one. You're right. Very impressive.
No, you are. You have an impressive brain. You're very smart.
Okay, go ahead. I'll stop playing with those.
Thank you.
Okay, the reason I'm getting at this is that I wonder if so that took 30 seconds basically for him to do that, to hypnotize you.
Yeah, I mean, maybe a little longer than that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So he hypnotizes you, and then you do what he says. So
Right.
if people have been watching TV for the past 20 years or 30 years or 40 years, and they grew up with Nickelodeon and MTV, and things have become more vile and less moralistic, and they become increasingly left. Mm-hmm. And so that guy said a few things and hypnotized you in a minute. Let's say a minute. If somebody's watching these key trigger things over a period of years and years and years, wouldn't it make sense to think that if somebody came along, they could put something out on TV, or they could say keywords? I know this sounds weird, but to where people are snapped into something, not even knowing. Because when I look at these people and the way that they react, it's as if they are on autopilot. It's not like they are acting in their right mind. And I'm not just talking about Antifa people, although they're weird as well. But I'm talking about well-to-do people in Washington, D.C. that react with complete rage. Then when I look at Q people, it's the same way. So what if somebody that is doing this Q thing were able to affect people by saying certain things a certain way and doing things a certain way and basically pretty much hypnotizing these people into thinking that this stuff is reality?
Well, it's interesting, but how would you explain someone like me that can get hypnotized, but I have a critical thinking mind and I'm quite independent that way?
You don't really read into Q. And you're already, I think...
How did I get a safeguard?
I think a lot of the times when it comes to this hypnotism, it's people that go in there accepting it. Mm-hmm. You accepted that it could happen when you were up on that stage. I didn't really accept it. Mm-hmm. And I'm thinking that people go in there looking for an answer, whether it be Q or people on the left, they are looking for an answer. They want an answer. They want somebody. It reminds me of when the Jews were being led through the desert by Moses, they, even though God was with them, they wanted a king. Mm-hmm. They wanted this. And God gave it over to them, and it was a disaster for them. And I think in a lot of ways, this is the same thing. And I don't think you want an answer. I think you look for answers, but you don't expect somebody to bring that answer to you. I
mean, I can see that in schools from my vantage point, from K through 12. I mean, only 27% of school teachers identify as Republican. So these kids from pre-K through 12th grade are getting indoctrinated with ideology, left-wing ideology and causes, and that's why we have the transgender phenomenon nowadays, because you never saw transgenderism the way it's portrayed nowadays as so mainstream. But it's because they're being programmed. And also, there's been a lot of research that says the longer that they stay on the phones and the laptops and iPads from babies coming up, the less gray matter they have. And the less gray matter you have, the more likely you are to be programmed and less likely to be able to critically think.
So I wonder if that would have a similar effect on adults.
I would think it probably does. If you're hearing the same thing day in and day out. I mean, I know with teachers and kids, it's easy to think of because children are spending more time with their teachers than they're spending with their parents. So they're just getting inundated and not being taught how to think. They're just being taught to accept whatever the teacher says is fact. That's indoctrination. Yeah. I mean, and as a conservative teacher, I don't want indoctrination of right-wing ideology either. I want teachers to teach kids how to think, how to be discerning, how to have a critical mind.
Yeah. Take a smell of that.
What is it? Ugh.
Yeah.
Gross.
When you open up Corona Light, it's got a very interesting smell to it.
It smells like marijuana.
It does. It's really...
Yeah.
Yeah.
It smells like marijuana. I'm not a marijuana smoker, but I teach, and unfortunately, I know the smell.
If you live in New York, you're going to know what the smell of marijuana is.
You walk on the streets of New York City, it's everywhere. It's pretty gross, actually.
If everybody's listening gets a chance to go to my Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, I'll put it on all of them. There's a video I did today. I was out by this elementary school, and there was 4 used condoms on the ground and about the same amount of the vape pens and some empty bottles of alcohol out there right next to elementary school. It was the grossest, weirdest thing. And it wasn't set back in the woods. This is right in a neighborhood. Mm-hmm. Houses right across the street. Weirdest thing out in Long Island. Crazy. Anyway. What else?
What else you want to talk about?
Well, I mean, you're a supporter of Barr. AG Barr, Attorney General Barr.
I'm neutral.
Because we were having this disagreement last week.
Right. I'm neutral.
Oh, now you're neutral.
No. I'm neutral because I'm very, very upset at his decision not to go after Andrew McCabe. That soured me on him a lot.
And it makes no sense.
Right, because when the whole thing with Roger Stone happened, and he came out and he said with Trump, it's making it hard to do his job because he wanted to give, Roger Stone less time. Mm-hmm. He didn't want to give him 7 to 9 years. I mean, some really bad criminals don't get 7 to 9 years. So I said, well, maybe he just wants to put daylight between himself and Trump so he can work. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that would make sense to me. But then the very next day is when the McCabe thing happened. And I totally, if you look at my tweets, it backs me up. I totally just changed my mind. And when it came to Barr, I was very upset with Barr. Why wouldn't he charge him? It made no sense. Mm-hmm. And I don't believe that Andrew McCabe is singing like a canary, especially when you look at Lisa Page's tweet.
So that's what I know exactly, and that's what that's the other thing people do. They don't want to ever think that anybody in the Trump administration is bad. Well, let me tell you something. I mean, there's been a lot of people in the Trump administration that are bad, not because Trump. Well, I will say this: the president, who I've always supported, does a terrible job of picking people that are outside of the DC swamp. Mm-hmm. He could pick people who were, former SEALs, for instance. I'm not using that because that's what I did, but there are a lot of guys I know that are former SEALs that were in federal law enforcement, people that are attorneys that have proven records. Somebody like Paul Qanon that I know that is going to come on this podcast. He's the attorney. You may have seen him on CNN before. He's not a leftist, but he is the guy who sued O.J. Simpson civilly and won for Nicole Brown Simpson's family. This guy's an amazing attorney. He was a homicide prosecutor in New York City. Just, it's amazing. That guy would be incredible in the Trump team. But you don't see that. You see generals and admirals and people that like Barr, who's been around D.C. since the Reagan or Bush era. I mean, I wouldn't be picking any of these people. I certainly wouldn't be picking somebody like Christopher Wray to run the FBI. Christopher Wray is in the same camp as Barr, Rosenstein, all the Mueller, Comey. They all work together in the DOJ as lawyers. Why don't we have FBI agents running the FBI? And I'm not talking about McCabe and these guys. There's people who were FBI agents. There's people who are FBI agents. My thing is, you cannot trust the upper echelon of the government. And in order to change that, we have to systematically start replacing those people with rank and file that show through, I don't know if you want to do tests or what, not show that they're conservative, but show that they're constitutional and show that they do not have symptoms of careerism, that they don't have ideological agendas that pressure them to go certain directions. You need people who are neutral and do their job in service of the Constitution. You take those people and you promote them to the top and you fire the rest of these people. Mm-hmm. And it can be done. I mean, this president has shown that if he wants to do something, he should just do it. I mean, the way he got rid of, finally, they got rid of the Vindman brothers, who I believe are spies. He got rid of them. Look in the news. Have you even heard anything about it this week? It's gone. It's already gone. He got rid of who's the ambassador?
Sondland.
Sondland. Got rid of him. They were him and Hod, gone. These are things that have to be done. And I think if he does it, some people say wait until a second term. I say do it now. Get rid of those people now. And the off chance that he doesn't get reelected, and I really think the president will get reelected, but I don't put anything past the Democrats. Let's say he doesn't get reelected. At least he would go out having gotten rid of all these people. And he needs to do that now with aggression. If the president ever listened to this, we had this thing called that we in the military and law enforcement is called violence of action. And it doesn't mean it's crazy violence. It means very focused violence of action. When we go into a room, we use focused violence is the way we attack a target. And that's, the president has to start looking at things like this, cleaning it up. Otherwise, I mean, let's face it, he did an amazing job over the past 3 years. But if it wasn't for the Democrat Congress and this impeachment nonsense, he would have been able to do a tremendous amount more. So, and the deep state, I should say. He's not going to get rid of the Democrats in Congress. He can get rid of the deep state. I mean, the deep state they only exist in certain positions in the government. Now, again, my book, Sheep No More, The Art of Awareness and Attack Survival, we can look at this in a similar way, divide the government up into sectors, and you could start for the bottom rank, medium rank, and then top rank, and you can look and see where they exist. They don't exist, not yet. I mean, they may be recruited based on their ideological reasons, but they're not a part of the deep state that can make these changes and sit on policies that the president puts out there until they get to a certain level. And that's what I think the president should start doing.
Agree.
Oh, gosh.
No, I agree 100%. That was the one mistake that President Trump made in his presidency is the day that he took office. He should have fired every Obama holdover that was in his branch that he could fire.
Yeah, I would love to have seen him do that his first day. And while he was giving his acceptance speech, I would have bombed the living crap out of North Korea. I mean, I'm being totally serious. I would have thrashed them. They would never have expected it. It would have been, and Iran too. You could have destroyed. That would have been the one day when none of these countries would have suspected anything. He could have crushed them.
You talk like a Navy SEAL.
Yeah.
But then we wouldn't have we could basically win Kim Jong-un over with a timeshare video. It's basically what Donald Trump did. Went in there and said, this is what North Korea could be. Look, here's North Korea
maybe.
Commons, and here's a McDonald's, and here.
We'll see if he comes around. I don't know.
We'll see. He's closer, I think, than any other president, though.
We'll see.
Iran is a disaster, but it's been a disaster. It will continue to be.
I don't know. I think Iran is an easier nut to crack, despite what Tucker Carlson and everybody says. I think that we could bomb their administration into oblivion.
Oh, we definitely
I
could.
think we could.
We definitely could. They're afraid of us, and that's why they did that show bombing where they really didn't do any damage.
Yeah. I think we could take them out pretty quickly, and I don't think it would really require ground troops to go in there and do it. I think we just bomb the living daylights out of them systematically, and a day of our choosing, and I think it could be done. That's. I mean, they're fragile. They're very fragile. What else is going? What else before we go? What do you think about anything?
Anything is a really, really
I'm going to look
big-
at the headlines real quick.
Oh, here we go. Yeah.
Look at the
Anything
headlines.
is really big.
Okay, let's see here.
Well, do you want to talk about the teachers' unions trying to get rid of these active shooter drills?
Yeah, stupid.
That's it. It really is stupid.
Well, I don't think, to tell you the truth, active shooter drills with the students in there, I don't really think that the police, I mean, I don't think it matters one way or the other, but ultimately, I think the police need to be trained with this. They can afford airsoft. There's airsoft fields all over the country. Also, paintball. They could be going in shifts and doing their own training outside the schools. And then when on the days off, they could come in when the school's not in session. They could go through the schools repeatedly and do this stuff without students. And then the students could be trained just like they are fire drills, trained how to secure in place. I mean,
Well, that's what they do. They do more like a shelter in place.
yeah, but I think
quiet.
they're talking about where cops come in and do do their stuff in there.
But I think that's necessary. I think that they
Maybe.
I think it's necessary. I think the more you do it, the more accustomed these children get to.
But my thing is, I think when it comes to law enforcement and military, I think you should train in private. I don't think that you need to expose what you're going to do and how you're going to do it. I think the kids should be trained separately in how they should react.
But the kids wouldn't see all the police coming down. They just would get their doors opened by the police.
Yeah. Well, sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. But anyway, regardless, I don't think it. Look, I don't care one way or the other. I think the cops should be trained in, regardless. And I think that the teachers' unions are leftist and stupid, so I don't really care what they have to say. But ultimately, they need to be doing threat assessments,
which would be so cost effective.
Yeah. It would be very cost effective. And that's the way you determine, how you identify who's a threat. You can identify where the avenues of approach. You can identify the times that these attacks will most likely happen, the areas that they're going to happen. I mean, what Klebold and Harris did in Columbine is exactly that. They did their own target packages. And if the school and the cops had done the same thing, they would have been able to discover that Klebold and Harris were likely to do something. There was plenty of evidence out there, and they would have known probably exactly how they would have done it and when they would have done it. There's only so many ways that you can attack a school if you're 18-year-old or 17-year-old, 16-year-old. There's only so many ways you can do it.
Well, the problem is the schools have their hands tied because if you do identify a threat, you can't get them out because of laws and
why
rights.
is that? Because the leftists have changed it that way.
That's right.
Right.
It's very difficult to get, and you can identify children that have severe mental illnesses that you think in your gut they've demonstrated evidence, they've demonstrated behaviors, they've written things that that this student is a threat, and you can't get them out. They really have to do something in order to get them out. So you have your hands tied there, and the other piece of it would be allowing staff to carry. Those are the only two things. If you could ease up on those regulations to get the students that
Kicked
are threats out and in a different placement and have teachers carry, then you'd be
also
better protected.
Lock doors where they don't need to be open, have passcodes where you can't come on campus after a certain period, after the bell rings, you cannot come on campus unless you call ahead and get a code. And then also the other thing, which I've been saying for years, is have veterans volunteer for this. Veterans who were trained in a combat unit, not just any veterans that were trained in a combat unit and former law enforcement, and let them qualify. You could do it nationally. And then, they could pay for their own weapons, their own ammunition. And then what they get is a 50-state concealed carry. And I don't know, give them a tax break. What was it? You're not going to break the freaking treasury by doing that. And if they did that, you literally could have 2 or more armed security officers at every school in the United States. There's plenty of these people around that would volunteer for this. But, anyway, that's a whole nother program we could talk about. But it is, I think what these teacher unions are doing is absolutely stupid. Let me ask you real quick. Who do you think now on the Democrat side is looking like they could be the winner of and become the nominee on the Democrat side?
None of the above. I think it's going to be a brokered convention.
Explain that, please.
Oh, no. Now you're putting me on the spot.
Well, don't bring it up if you're not going to explain it.
Well, basically, a brokered convention would be nobody really takes the majority of the votes. So they have to do a lot of wheeling and dealing.
Right, exactly.
And somebody like a Bloomberg could sneak in. And I think that is who the MSM want. I think that's who the Democrat establishment are looking to or towards as a savior. So that's my take on that. Because they don't want Bernie Sanders. He's going to be the runaway nominee. If you want my personal opinion, I think he's going to run away with the delegates. They're going to put some rule in there to take it away from him. That's going to anger the Bernie bros. They're not going to come out and vote. It's a disaster. There's not one candidate that they have that could even remotely get close to Donald Trump. If any of them did get the nomination. I mean, Joe Biden, what an embarrassment. Did you expect Joe Biden to fail this spectacularly?
Yes.
You did. See, I didn't think it was going to be this bad.
I'll tell you why. Because Joe Biden is a criminal. Joe Biden is a complete fraud of a leader. But Joe Biden, I do not believe Joe Biden is truly a leftist.
He's a moderate, for sure.
He's truly somebody who he's just an imbecile. I wouldn't even say he's as more of a moderate as he is just an idiot. But I think that he is not in the same playing field as these people. And the only reason he's up there is because he is Joe Biden. And I don't think he knows how to speak this language that the Democrats are speaking. And I also don't believe, quite frankly, maybe I'm going out on a limb here, I don't believe across the country that there are that many Democrats that will vote for most of these people. I don't think that they'll vote for Bernie Sanders.
I agree.
I don't think that they would support, I think Elizabeth Warren had some followers, but I think she's burnt that bridge because people have realized she's dumb and unrealistic. And I think when it comes to Buttigieg, I think people are starting to ask the question, finally, who is this guy? Who is this guy? What are his qualifications again? And, you can't do things like Buttigieg has done, like get a restricted line commission through this reserve unit in the Navy that is really a strange way. And I'm going to get into this some more in a future podcast, but Buttigieg never went to officer candidate school. He didn't go to boot camp. He didn't do anything. He went through this program that they have. It's usually used for linguists or doctors. There's probably some other specialties. For some reason, Intel has a specialty, and they felt like for some reason he had some kind of specialty that he wouldn't need to go through officer candidate school or any kind of type of
that's shady.
any type of training. 2 weeks of training. And then he's an officer in the Navy, doing things that officers in the Navy don't do, like drive people around. And it was very strange. Another person who went through that same program, just to show you it's not the left, was Reince Priebus. Reince Priebus was an ensign in the Navy when he was like 40 years old.
That's so shady sounding to me.
Very shady.
Right.
You know who else goes through it? Press secretaries. And first of all,
so he's not this combat hero that he's trying to make himself out to be.
No, he is absolutely not a combat hero. No.
Well, with Buttigieg, where he's got a problem, he's got multiple problems, but A, he's not going to get the African-American vote. He's not. And B, I honestly, listen, whatever your feelings are about homosexuality, that's fine. I just don't think middle America is ready to see a first man. And this is not a homophobic statement because I don't care either way.
Unless it was Denzel Washington, then I think they'd be okay with it.
But I really don't think it doesn't translate to middle Americans. And this is why I'm saying this, because during the Iowa caucus, where you had a Democrat voter, when she found out he was gay, believe it or not, she didn't know he was gay when she cast her vote for him. Then she found out he was gay and she goes, oh, no, I need my vote back. So that's what I'm saying, that middle America, they're very innocent. It's not like here in New York where you grow up and, everybody has a gay cousin or a gay friend, or it's not like, it's very common where I'm from, but not maybe as in your face in these middle American states. So he has got a problem.
And what about Romney? I haven't got to ask you about Romney.
Ugh. There's a rumor out there. There's a rumor that Bloomberg is going to ask Romney to run on a unity ticket to be a spoiler.
What about Clinton? Hillary?
This is what bothers me so much. It's like, sheep no more. It's like sheep everywhere, okay? Because Bloomberg is very smart. He didn't get to be a billionaire by being an idiot. And he's taking a lot of lessons from Donald Trump, the things that Donald Trump does right as far as manipulating the media. So these videos come out with stop and frisk, right? And you have Bloomberg saying, throw them up against the wall in front of a crowd at an Aspen fundraiser. It's the worst optics in the world, right? Then all of a sudden the story drops that, he's going to choose Hillary Clinton as his running mate. It wasn't true. It was just to divert everyone's attention. It's like a cat with a laser pointer. You point in a different direction. All the lemmings and all the cats look at it.
Right.
And that's what the whole Hillary Clinton. She's not running. She's unhealthy, and the Democrat Party hates her. She's a candidate that lost how many times? She's never going to run again.
I'm just seeing this on FoxNews.com. Harvard Law professor Alan Dershowitz, who I've interviewed several times, said Sunday he has proof that former President Barack Obama personally asked the FBI to investigate someone on behalf of George Soros.
Release it. Where is it?
Very interesting.
Yes. Oh, goodness gracious. By the way, how great is Trump, though, for calling out corruption? When he sees injustice, that's the kind of president that I want. He's like, Roger Stone doesn't deserve 7 and 9 years. And I like a president that calls that out. And he has every right to do that. He runs the executive. Barr is his employee.
Yeah.
So is there any evidence in that article or no? Is this another TikTok thing? Because I'm so sick of TikToks.
Yeah, I don't know.
Every time I hear TikTok, I just I'm over it.
I don't know. I really don't know. All right, listen, we've been talking for a while now. I think that the people have a lot to think about, and we're going to come on tomorrow, and I'm going to talk some more about this stuff. But that's about it. That's all I got. So here's what I'm going to do. I think we will. I think we will call that a day, a night, a morning, because you're probably going to listen to this in the morning. Hope that this is probably one of the most disorganized podcasts I've done so far, but I think it was really good because we just ranted.
It was a conversation.
We ranted.
It was you know me, Jonathan. When I prepare for a podcast or any show, I'm very overly prepared and I sound a lot more intelligent.
Mm-hmm.
So this was nice. It was more of a conversation.
I agree.
Yeah, it was lighter.
Anyway, congratulations that you got to watch NASCAR for the first time. We pray for Ryan Newman that he's okay. And make sure you're telling everybody about this podcast. You know, I did my little commercial earlier. Go get Sheep No More if you haven't checked it out. Go get it. I think it'll change your life, make you see things a lot better, a lot more organized. And in a dangerous world, you'll be able to see where these threats are. And the adventures of Team Little Bigs. It's an amazing new children's book. A lot of librarians that I met were actually excited about the autistic kids being able to be taught this way. This is Jonathan Gilliam. Thank you for joining me on another episode of The Experts. I'll see you tomorrow. I'll be talking to you tomorrow. Remember, wherever you see this face or you hear this voice, the truth has arrived. Thank you, PolitiDiva.
You're welcome. It was great. Thank you.
Peace out. Why are you laughing? I didn't say anything. Thank you. We're out of here.